Today we're going to talk about sine law versus cosine law. So far up to this point, we have looked at Pythagorean theorem. We've looked at the sine, cos, and tan ratios, sine law, and cosine law. So Pythagorean theorem only works for right angle triangles. And the sine, cos, and tan ratios, otherwise known as SOHCAHTOA, they also only work for right angle triangles. But sine law and cosine law work for any type of triangle. So it's hard to know when should I use sine law, when should I use cosine law. So there's lots of different ways that you can make that choice. The way I personally do it is if I know an angle and an opposite side. So if I have an angle in a triangle, say here, and an opposite side across from it that I know both numbers for, then I'm allowed to use sine law. And if I don't have that, then I use cosine law. That's it. That's how I decide. I look to see, do I know an angle and an opposite side, both numbers? And then if I don't, I use cosine law. So there are 4 examples here, and we are going to identify for each one whether we would use sine law or cosine law. So I'm going to ask you, I'll pause each time for you to think first what you think, and then I will tell you what I think. So it says, in our first one here, we've got a triangle with an angle of 72 degrees. We have a side of 50, a side of 70, and a side of x. So when I'm trying to decide, I'm going to ask myself, do I have an angle and an opposite side that I know both numbers for? Well, the answer on this first triangle is no. The only angle I know is the 72 degrees, and the side across from that, I don't know, right? It's an x, and I don't know any of the other angles. So that means here, I am not going to use sine law. I would use cosine law. All right, let's take a look at the next one. So this one, we have a triangle with angles 64 and 47. We have a side of x and a side of 23 meters. So first thing I want to ask myself is, do I know an angle and an opposite side? Well, the answer here is yes. I have 64 degrees and 23 meters. Those two are across from each other, which means I have an angle and an opposite side that I know both numbers for, so I should be able to use sine law. All right, let's take a look at the next one. So I've got a triangle here with an angle of 80 and 65 degrees. I have a side length of 8 kilometers and a missing side x. So what do you think? Sine law or cosine law? Well, I notice that I have an angle and a side across from it, which tells me I should be able to use sine law. All right, and my last one, I have a triangle here. I've got an angle of 33 degrees. I have a side of 100 millimeters, 113 millimeters, and then we're trying to solve for side x. So what do you think, sine law or cosine law? Well, the only angle that I have in this question is that 33 degrees. If I go across from that, I don't know what this side is. And then I do have these side lengths, but I don't know what these angles are. So this is definitely going to be a cosine law. So if you know an angle and its opposite side, you can use sine law. And if you don't have that, then I would use cosine law. So you can join me in the next video if you need some help doing the 2 practice questions.